Good morning. How are you? Today is Wednesday and it's the 1st of February. And today I want to discuss what it means to be free, what it means to get to the place of what spiritual traditions call ultimate freedom or moksha. Another word for this is enlightenment. So, in the beginning of the book, You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self, and you can join the conversation here on discoveringyourcosmicself.com. In the beginning of the book, I did pose some very important questions, and we have kind of discussed them. We've discussed the conundrums that science faces. So these conundrums, of course, include all the great mysteries that we're exploring today from science. What came before the Big Bang? Why does the universe fit together so perfectly? Where did time come from? What is the universe made of? Is there design in the universe? Is the quantum world linked to everyday life? Do we live in a conscious universe? How did life first begin? Does the brain create the mind? So, what if I told you that maybe the questions themselves are misleading? Maybe the questions themselves are misleading. What if I told you that actually we need to reverse everything that we know about reality? That time is a movement in timelessness. That indeed the Big Bang is happening right now. That mind and brain are complementarities of awareness or consciousness, that life always is, on and on. These topics are covered in the book, but the most fundamental way to understand them is to begin to understand that consciousness is the constant of all constants. So if you declare that consciousness has no place in explaining how the universe works, the human mind is left hanging out on an evolutionary limb by itself. Is that really probable? Some physicalists will reluctantly concede mind-like behavior in the cosmos, while refusing to call it conscious, finding the word almost radioactive. It is thought that soon after the Big Bang, much of creation was obliterated as matter and antimatter annihilated each other. But a tiny imbalance in favor of certain constants allowed the visible universe to exist, implying that matter and antimatter can reach a kind of peace treaty before both sides were totally wiped out. This reconciliation is known technically as complementarity, and two opposites that find a way to coexist are said to be complementary. For example, when two particles are entangled, as physics calls it, they display mirrored characteristics like spin and charge, even when separated by billions of light years. This makes them complementary. A change in one particle is instantly mirrored in the other. So this is called non-local correlation, which is instantaneous, the robustness of which does not diminish with space and time, with distance in space and time. It's instantaneous, it's unmediated. There's no way that information can pass from one particle in the universe to another particle in the universe, and yet they dance together. So it's unmediated and it's unmitigated. Distance in space or distance in time are not important. It's like the whole universe is just one symphony. Okay, so this is supposedly the fundamental nature of the universe. You tickle the universe in one location and it laughs in another location billions of light years away. So you tickle the universe in the future and it laughs in the past. You tickle the universe in the past, it laughs in the future. In fact, past, present, and future are instantly correlated now. Debbie Perkins says, "Where are you?" I am non-local, Debbie. Okay, so I was coming back to what non-locality is. Everything is instantly correlated and instantly inseparable everywhere in the universe. Yusra Muhammad, I honestly appreciate you deeply from Iraq. Yusra, it is my hope to come to Iraq one of these days. Going back to what we were saying, in the deeper domain, there is no separation. Separation in space and time are perceptual and cognitive artifacts. So Iraq is in you, and New York is in you, and the world is in you, and in fact the whole universe is in you. The implication is that complementarity is more fundamental than relativity, which takes the speed of light as an absolute limit. Instant communication isn't allowed, and yet non-locality occurs. This means that entanglement is more fundamental than the four basic forces in nature, which are bound by rules that also take the speed of light as a limit. Okay, so if we see how this is important, you'll see that it is this understanding, if you can have it, if you can feel it, if you can know it, that sets you free, because you're not bound by constructs such as space-time and causality. Okay, you're not squeezed into the volume of a body or the span of a lifetime. That's a perceptual artifact, that we appear to be squeezed into the volume of a body and the span of a lifetime. It's fascinating to imagine how particles separated by billions of light years could be talking to one another, and yet the same mystery exists much closer to home. In the brain, it takes the coordinated effort of neurons scattered here and yonder to produce the three-dimensional image we call the physical world. This kind of coordination is also instantaneous, just as it is with elementary particles. The entire scheme works as a whole. On a movie set, the director calls for lighting, photography, sound, and action. Each one is a separate setup, and coordinating them takes time. But when you look out at the world, the mind doesn't say, "I got the lights going. Where's the sound? Will somebody cue the sound, please?" Instead, there is instantaneous coordination of all elements needed to produce the movie that we call life. So that's the understanding. And I was reading a little bit from my book, You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self. You can join the conversation here. And what I'd like to do is, as always, it's simpler if you understand these complex ideas by reading the poetry of great sages and mystics, and one of them is the great Rabindranath Tagore. So let me read one of his poems. It is not my portion to meet you in this form, in this life, then let me feel that I missed your sight. If it is not my portion to meet you in this, my life, then let me ever feel that I have missed your sight. Let me not forget for a moment, let me carry the pangs of this sorrow in my dreams and in my wakeful hours. As my days pass in the crowded market of this place, and my hands grow full with the daily profits, let me ever feel that I have gained nothing. Let me not forget for a moment, let me carry the pangs of this sorrow in my dreams and in my wakeful hours. When I sit by the roadside, tired and panting, when I spread my bed low in the dust, let me ever feel that the long journey is still before me. Let me not forget for a moment, let me carry the pangs of this sorrow in my dreams and in my wakeful hours. When my rooms have been decked out and the flutes sound and the laughter there is loud, let me ever feel that I have not invited you to my house. Let me not forget for a moment, let me carry the pangs of this sorrow in my dreams and in my wakeful hours. So that's the cry of someone who is squeezed into the volume of a body in the span of a lifetime, that has identified themselves with what I would call a selfie, sacrificed the self for the selfie, sacrificed the soul for the ego. But now his next poem is actually about freedom. I am like a remnant of a cloud of autumn uselessly roaming in the sky. Oh, my sun, ever glorious, your touch has not yet melted my vapor, making me one with your light. And so I count months and years separated from you. But if this be your wish, and if this be your play, then take this fleeting emptiness of mine, paint it with colors, gild it with gold, float it on the wanton wind, and spread it in varied wonders. And when it shall be a wish to end this play at night, I shall melt and vanish away in the dark, or it may be in a smile of the white morning, in a coolness of purity transparent. That is freedom. What is freedom? The lightness of being. No longer squeezed into the volume of a body and the span of a lifetime, but understanding yourself as the infinite possibility at all times, the infinite potential of all that was and all that is and all that will be. All that was, all that is, and all that will be. That is freedom. That is home free. In the words of T.S. Eliot, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from, and the end of our exploring is to arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. Cheers. I'll see you tomorrow.